What would you say you do here?
Yeah, well, welcome once again to the podcast that has everybody asking, what would you say you do here? I wanted to actually we got an action-packed show for you today. I don't know if you've listened to the episode with Claude Blackburn. He talked about back in the day sending out postcards, and it was kind of funny because I had been thinking about sending out postcards. So maybe some of you have received these, but he talked about he paid for the return to sender postage. So he paid for as many as he sent out. He also paid for quite a few that came back. Back in the 1900s, as my kids say, he thought that was an indication of companies going out of business, those kinds of things. So maybe some places have changed their addresses, but also maybe still we've got some attrition in the marketplace. So if you received one of these, you're welcome. If you didn't, apologies, maybe it's still in the mail. But let's get things started with our first guest here. We have a triple IICRC master. So let's bring in. Good morning, Robert. So
how you doing, John?
Clearly, you're French, right? You've got the accent aigu on the end of your E. So is it Robert Mouret?
That's correct. Yes.
Is it? Did I nail it? Okay.
You did.
So not only are you a lover of all things, but a lover of the industry, and you just wrapped up your triple IICRC master. You got the water, fire, and textiles, right? So
yep.
You haven't been sleeping for the last 5 years. You're just studying. But that takes a commitment not only on your part, but somebody's got to back it. That's a investment of a lot of hours and a lot of money, right? A lot of classes and those kinds of things. So how were you able to convince people to get behind that?
So I didn't really have to convince anybody to, that my first 5 years I was with an independent company. And the owner there, he's the one that actually came to me and said, you need to get certified, you need to invest in yourself and your career if this is where you want to be at. So yeah. He pushed me towards being this direction, going into being a triple master. So that's where it started.
Okay.
So then his company dissolved. So I came in with Paul Davis and the owners of my particular franchise. I came to them and told him, because I came into his franchise as a journeyman in all three, and told him I was on this path, and he was very supportive. Said, "Okay, I'm fine with you doing that." So because ultimately it helped the company as a whole. So
yeah. And you're the mitigation manager estimator now?
Yes.
Nice. And so so it's important too. Mid-level managers, how do you advocate for that for your people, right? Sometimes that's actually one of the topics we're going to talk about with our guest today, where the owners, hog all the certifications, and so it sounds like you've found places where people invest in the people. And how have you seen that as far as like advocating for your team as well?
First of all, I use myself as an example, and I push them to be more like me, I guess. I hate to say it
Yeah.
that way, but that's I push them to be more like me, have my kind of passions, because I think it was Simon Sinek who said that passion is an output. So if you're putting into them passion, you should get out of them passion.
Yeah.
So and the owner should reap the the return on investment on that by getting the education. They'll be able to help the customers better, and helping the customers better, the business should be affected as a whole. Yeah.
I can hear Eric and Larry saying amen. That's their whole thing. So
well, and I listen to Eric and Larry too, kind of where I got that from too. So
yep. So okay, I want to ask you, this is a question we're going to ask, kind of the theme, I guess, somewhat of the show. I'm sure you've heard the quip, manager one comes into the office, he's super frustrated, right? Like what happens if we train our people, we invest in them, and then they leave? And then the other manager wisely says, well, what happens if we don't train them and then they stay? What is your response, Robert Amore?
Well, I think the first question comes from a place of fear. So if you think they're going to leave, you got to take an internal look at yourself and see, well, why would they leave? If I get them trained, why would, if everything is good as far as compensation and a culture, why would they leave?
Yeah.
And if we don't train them and they stay, then ultimately the customers will be affected, because you might get some people that might be able to do most of the job, but when it comes to putting it all together without the training or the classroom, you're not gonna be able to put it together.
Yep.
So,
well, that's cool, man. Well, I appreciate all the love you give the DYOJO and the encouragement you give me, and so I'm glad it worked out to have you open the show for us. Any other words of wisdom you want to give to the unsuspecting audience?
no, I don't have none right now.
That's so your podcast. We've just launched it here. We want credit for it. The Amore moment. Love yourself, love your company, love your team. Right.
Yep.
So, well, cool, man. Well, we'll let you get to it, and thank you so much for joining us to share from Maryland, right?
Yes.
Boonsboro, Maryland.
Yep, that's my hometown. We're in both Boonsboro. I work in West Virginia, so Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia. So both places.
Awesome, man. Well, it's nice to finally connect face to face, and hopefully we'll meet in person someday. So
that'd be great.
Awesome, man.
Thanks.
Okay, well, there you go. Incredible. Yeah, you're welcome. So let's. I really. I initially throughout. Eric and Larry are very good. If you've ever listened to the Blue Collar Nation, they're very good at shooting from the hip and spitballing. And let's see, I've been on their podcast. I don't know what the heck happened. Eric was actually on fairly early in the DYOJO podcast, but the video got just destroyed, or not destroyed. I think it recorded over. I've said before, I'm not very technically savvy. So we started with kind of a loose, and then I sent them over late, kind of more of a structured. So we're going to bring them in, and we're going to do the best we can to make the best of it we can. So again, to plug Blue Collar Nation podcast, lots of great information, restoration specific as well as skilled trades, service-based industries. And then they have the morning tech meeting. If you haven't checked that out, soft skills training for your people daily comes directly to them, and help you grow your team and increase the return on investment. So that's the nature of the discussion we're going to have here. And so let's bring these handsome gentlemen in. There's Eric. Good morning, Eric.
How you doing?
Good. Yourself?
Good. Yeah,
I'm the handsome one, just so you know.
Yeah,
Right.
That's true.
Goes without saying, right?
He's the beauty. I'm the brains.
I'm looking forward to do some spitballing with you, John.
Yeah.
Spitball. Yeah.
No, I just want to give a shout out to Robert. He's a member of our tribe. He interacts with us on social media and listens. Yep. And I just want to congratulate him on getting the triple masters. That's a big deal. That's not easy to do.
Yeah.
So good kudos to him.
Well, speaking of doing things that are challenging, you guys are very cute. You get in your little outfits and you take short little bike rides, right? So what's I think you're short. What rode out like 100 miles or something like that. It's ridiculous.
Something like that.
Yeah, we've got one coming up that we're working on. That's going to be quite the event. So we'll share that later.
But you do that. I mean, you do that just for personal, obviously health reasons and those kinds of things. But kind of clear the head. Both of you.
Development.
Say that again.
All psychological development. When we're on the bike.
Yeah.
When you put your book on tape, the intentional culture, I'll listen to the whole thing as well as reading it. I can't wait.
Yeah. Well,
Larry and I do it differently, John. So Larry takes that time and he usually will listen to something. And I think the movement for him, it gives him, thinking space. For me, I can't have anything. That's my time where I completely shut my brain down. I don't have one thought. All I think about is riding hard. And then when I get back, it's almost like meditation. But then when I get back, I feel good. And then the thoughts come. So Larry and I do the same thing, but we do it differently.
Yeah.
Shocking.
He has no thoughts at all. Sometimes he drives over things and he comes back with
I try to have as few thoughts as humanly possible.
I think he hit something back there. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever.
I think I'm trying to be conscious. I really did. I blasted out. I listened to, you guys were on Josh Zolin's Blue is the New White. And you guys did a deep dive kind of into really your story that got you into business together. So I really would encourage anybody that's interested, please. It's episode 47 of Blue is the New White. We talked about it some on the 2 times you guys had me on, and then when we had Eric on the podcast. So I don't want to go all the way back, but I one piece of it that I thought that was interesting, it refreshed my memory listening to that episode with Josh, was you guys were sitting in a parking lot. You have the one truck that says carpet cleaning, right? And the one truck that says duct cleaning. And a national vendor comes up and says, "You guys do carpet cleaning and duct cleaning?" And then Larry says, "Well, what gave you that impression?" And then you drove away, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the timing was good for that because we had massive fires like literally a week later.
Oh, yeah.
So we were doing work for them, subcontractor work for them for 4 to 6 months straight.
Well, what is I was thinking about that as you said that. You guys are basically saying, here's a national vendor that gets all these calls, but in their process maybe doesn't quite take care of the customer or their team, right? So we can do it better. What's the difference? There's a level of that you have to have as an entrepreneur, right? Where you're like, can I back up on that, John, real quick?
Yeah. We never said we could do it better. The actual work.
Said we
right?
could do it better.
Well, we might have, but what was happening was, I would show up with the carpet truck to go clean, after the fires, and I'd ring the doorbell, and the door would open, and they thought that I was with that national company. They just start screaming at me with all their frustrations.
Yeah.
So at first I was really taken back by that. And then I realized they're just frustrated. So I'd let them go. And then I'd be like, "Oh, ma'am, I'm just a, subcontractor." And they go, "Well, let me tell you about these guys." And then they do it again. So, I think for what Larry and I did is we could never, they probably did more losses in a month than we'd do in a year, even at our height. But we're like, we can give better service than this. We can communicate better than this. We might not ever be better than them, doing the work. But we can treat the people so that at the end they're as happy as they're gonna be in a loss situation.
Yeah,
and I think we achieved that.
Yeah, it was a culture of caring. I mean, our people cared about every single client.
Yeah,
and if we cared about our people, then our people care about our clients.
Well, that's the big trick, right? Is it doesn't just happen, right? If you treat your people like crap, it's gonna roll downhill, and vice versa. So. As I think too, you guys have talked about a lot, and I think that goes without saying. Like when you're first starting a business, it's survival mode. I got a kick. I've still been chuckling. You know, you guys bought the carpet cleaning truck, and then you're both like, "Well, how do you start it?"
I had no clue.
Yeah. Well, the guy was doing something, and I don't.
Yeah, let me tell that story real quick, John. So we needed this truck, and we wanted to get like the biggest, baddest truck, and you know they were like they were like 130 grand or something. We're like, we're not there yet. So we found this guy in Minnesota, and I literally flew there that day with a cashier's check, right? But so on a Saturday morning, like 30 below in Minnesota, he's got the thing in his shop. He's firing it up like super fast and showing me and talking all this lingo that I had no idea what he was talking about. And then I just kind of looked at him and I just handed him the cashier's check. I went, okay, dude, I'll see you later. So then I started driving away. And then all of a sudden I realized, because this truck was huge too, you know. And then I pulled into the gas station. I couldn't even find the gas tank.
Oh, geez.
Like, I was like, where's this friggin' thing, you know? And yeah, so I drove all the way across the country in like the middle of winter and snowstorms in this truck. And then I got to California, and you know, Larry had already booked a job for us, and we pulled in all the hoses, and he goes, "All right, how do we turn it on?" And I was like, beats me, man. That guy was moving so fast I couldn't keep up. Larry was so mad at me. You know,
I'm like, he didn't tell you how to turn it on.
If he had been there with the guy, he would have been out of there too. Like the guy was drunk. It was the whole thing. It was like a big thing.
This is probably still YouTube's not what it is today, right? Where you can just hop on and there's a video for everything.
No, we figured it out we had a manual. We went up to the glove box
and started out reading line 1. It just went down.
But actually, John, we used the pictures from that job for like a decade. Yeah. Because it was like an apartment, and the guy must have been changing the oil in his motorcycle or something in there. We had been cleaning with a portable up to that point. Yep. And all of a sudden we got a vortex, you know, and that thing's getting hot. And we're just pulling the wand, and that carpet was like, look brand new. Yeah. Like we just looked at each other and went, oh my gosh, like what have we done? Like this is the greatest thing ever.
And hang on, we used the pre-spray that the guy left on the truck because we weren't even sure how to mix it.
Yeah, that's true.
And it worked, and it smelled like citrus. Well, had a really good mixture.
And I remember it looked like brand new, and we were so proud. We were high-fiving, like we just made the greatest investment ever. And then the property manager called Larry and complained, and she said it didn't look good enough. Oh. And Larry sent her the before pictures, and she called back and profusely apologized.
Yeah, we did the best we could with what you have, right?
Yeah. You were like, you know, we're not responsible for your tenant, you know, changing his oil in the living room.
Well, so Robert opened the show talking about the triple master, right? Pretty unique that companies this is right in your guys' wheelhouse. But I guess I wanted to, on the one extreme, I suppose you have the owners where they get themselves certified for everything and then aren't using it and aren't training their team, right? Is sad to say typical. That'd be status quo, right? I don't know if that's in your experience, but it's like, you know, I've got all this training, I've got all the certification. Here's me at the class. And then that stuff somehow doesn't trickle down. You know, and then a lot of that, to be fair, is just busy, right? You get busy, you intend, maybe you have the right intentions, but it just doesn't happen. And on the flip side of not investing, so how do you, I know for you guys in business, you got to that point where you started taking some classes, started getting certifications, and then also started doing the coaching thing. Where do you think that balance is and the value there?
You know, I mean, for us, because we weren't doing rebuild, no reconstruction. And so for us, it was more like, we both got certified. We got our key guys certified, but we were kind of doing the same loss over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Because in Southern California, almost every house is kind of similar, you know.
Yep.
So we didn't really feel compelled to get every single guy certified. You know, what we had is the key people were certified, and then we had our own processes and our own way to do it. And we trained, you know, our managers then trained all of those guys to do it the Shamrock way.
Yeah.
And that worked well for us. You know, I mean, if we had been somewhere where every house was custom and you know,
yeah,
they're huge. Like if we went to Silicon Valley and we're doing what we were doing, it would have been a totally different story. And we would have had to get guys with, you know, doing what Robert was doing. But we just Larry and I looked at each other and like, it just doesn't warrant that much training for everybody, you know. Yeah. We also, John, broke things down. So like we had one guy who would drive around and do monitors. Yep. And that was his job. He's doing monitors, he's pulling equipment, he's placing equipment. Yep. And then we had a demo crew. And then we had a different crew that did mold remediation. Like we tried to break it down as best we could so that the guys could just do the same things over and over and over and get really good at them.
Specialize. And
then we not never, but we really didn't have any of the carpet cleaners cross-trained to go do flood work. We kept them separate from the MIC guys. I think that worked well for us. You know, we tried to give people, you know, like our cleaners, you know, they all got certified and everything, but the same thing, you know, we're on Mikey's board, we're on Truck Mount forums, we're on Cleaners Connect, you know, like we learned as much by just our industry friends and being inquisitive as we ever learned in a class.
Well, I think that's the trick too, is I'm so thankful when I got started, I probably worked 6 months before I went to my first class. And I feel like that's
a good thing.
I feel like that just prepares you to where you get it, right? You're like, okay, this, what they've taught me now makes sense. I now have more of the science behind it. And you have in our industry a lot of guys that are just intuitive, right? Like it isn't rocket science. It's psychometrics. It's, you know, you can really get in the weeds if you want to, but like you said, your everyday loss, you know, it's almost like a formula in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I think that's so you have the I send a guy to a class and it wasn't valuable. I think that's part of the value of those boards and things like that is figuring out which trainers really get into, you know, the hands-on application. One of the ones that I hate every year is our Harris certification for asbestos. And it's some guy that wants to talk about the rock quarry in Montana. And it's like, dude, we're out there testing. Can we talk about something applicable to, you know?
I've sat through IICRC classes where it's like, it's a 2-day class and a day and a half into it. I'm kind of sitting there like, when are we going to start? Like, when does the actual info start?
Yeah.
You're telling me how to run my business. I already have a business.
Yeah.
It all comes down to the instructor too.
Yeah.
In great measure.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Well, and maybe a bad day or like you said, I think you have to supplement that with internal systems and training. When did that, so that's, I mean, that gets kind of into the meat of what you guys do with Morning Tech Meeting. When did it become, had you always done daily meetings and daily trainings?
No, we had a daily meeting where we went over the jobs with everybody. We go through all the jobs. They always want to know what everybody was going on. The techs were into, you know, had an idea. So that 5 or 10 minutes in the morning was very valuable.
Yeah.
And then Eric started giving them lessons on life lessons and how to help these guys. Goal setting was the first thing we did, right, Eric?
Yeah, the first thing we did is we realized that if they're not good outside of work, they're not going to be good at work.
Yeah.
We had a lot of guys who had some life challenges, and I don't think that's uncommon in any of the trades. And so, you know, we started working on that, and that, to be honest, was not as effective as what we ended up doing because it almost got a little overwhelming for them. And I have a tendency to just come in hard. So I'm like, what are your goals? You know, what do you mean you have no goals?
Oh, they didn't have any idea.
When are you buying a house? You know, like,
yeah.
So I had to learn, you know, so then Larry and I are like, we're on to something, but it's not good yet. You know what I mean? Like so then the next step was I went and got John Maxwell certified for leadership, and I came back, and then, you know, I had all these books, and if anyone's read a lot of John Maxwell, it's very geared to a more white collar crowd.
Sure.
So I was just doing what they taught me, and I started coming in with the books and the lessons, and I was doing them just straight out of Maxwell, and the guys were just sitting there like just tuned out, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And then I looked at Larry, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wasted all this time and money. They're not listening, And then he's like, well, we're going to figure this out. So I just started going, wait a minute. At heart, I'm a technician too. So I just got to take the point of Maxwell's lesson and then put it in our language.
Yeah.
And once I started doing that, that's when everything got way better because we're teaching. And then as time went on and the people that had been there longer, I could do more of the actual Maxwell lesson because they were building skills upward.
You laid the foundation.
Yeah. But there was trial and error to morning tech meeting. And after Larry and I sold, I went to Idaho and I was consulting at a restoration company, and Larry was still at Superior marketing. And I called him one day and I was like, all those meetings we used to do every day? And he's like, yeah, because the other company that I was consulting with didn't want to do meetings. Like the owner was just like, I don't want to take 4 minutes or, whatever.
Yeah.
And then we, I cajoled him into doing it. And then I was seeing the same results that we were getting at Shamrock. I'm seeing somewhere else in a completely different ownership situation, a completely different market, completely different type of, employee. And then it just dawned on me. I was literally standing in the driveway of like a multi-million-dollar house watching the team work. And I was like, this works for anybody.
Yeah.
This can work for anyone. So I called Larry and I'm like, I got our next business. And then I had to talk him in. I'm always the guy talking him into it. Come on, dude, let's do it.
Yeah.
And, right.
Yep.
Because you were like, I don't know, dude.
Yeah, we'll see. And then we thought about it for a while. We started putting a couple things together, and we did some test systems with some other people. Like, this is a great idea. It was working with other people, just testing the system out, and all of a sudden the system was really functional.
Yeah.
We walk the talk. We got a great why because it worked with us.
Yeah.
And we give it to other people.
Yeah. And, we started reaching out to guys that we knew at the beginning and say, could you beta test this for us? And guys with companies with, restoration companies, the 40, 50 guys are calling us back going, this works.
Yeah.
So it's not just like we needed to know it wasn't just us.
Yeah.
Before we put it out on the market.
Well,
go ahead. Sorry. No. I was going to say it takes a little bit of time to get rolling, but once they're rolling, they really see the results.
Well, it was interesting. I was doing research for another article, and Clean Facts magazine has this benchmarking survey. And I think at least back to 2018, they have the top 5 challenges. Did you guys see that in the email?
Yeah, I did.
So the top 5 challenges, number 1 is recruiting and retaining quality staff. So this is a survey of restoration owners. 2 is maintaining margins of profitability. 3 is cash flow. 4, differentiating your company. And 5, increasing costs of doing business. It's funny. All of those are basically, pitch lines for what Morning Tech Meeting does, right? As far as, helping you recruit and retain quality staff and on down the list. So what is that? Because exactly like you said, I remember I got hired by a large company for the purpose of training, right? They said one of the key issues was their technicians had not developed. They hadn't seen the bigger picture. They weren't, and just like you said, beyond just going to the classes, developing within the system to consistently produce water, contents, fire this way. And then the first day, man, that we talked about this previously, the first day I had a training, my managers, and I wrote about it in the culture book, just sitting there fuming. I mean, red. And he goes, "Who?"
I didn't know Larry worked there.
Yeah.
I had the same experience.
He's like, "Who's paying for this? You have, 15 people in there for 15 minutes. That's not being applied to my job." And it's like, dude, you hired me to train and develop. How do you do that without meeting with people or setting aside time to do that? So
consistently.
Yeah. So
Larry, you want to talk about how you overcame that? I think this is a great question for Larry to answer because he and I differed on approach at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, we'd stop doing, cash flow and payroll will be kind of tough. You go your ups and downs of business.
Yep.
I was like, we got to skip the meeting today because then we got to get out the door, or we'd have a ton of jobs. We got to get out the door.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, they kind of want the meeting. I'm like, no. So we'd skip it for a day or two, and it would show in the morale and the performance of the guys, which, you might have seen with your company. Well, if you're able to do it for quite a while. And then when we would skip a couple of days, they would kind of be grumpy and they wouldn't be happy with us. And it would be,
because what we're really telling them at that point is you're not important anymore.
Yeah.
Money's more important than you.
Yep.
Right. Whereas I'm going to invest it in you every day until it's inconvenient for me.
Right.
Right.
That you nailed that. I mean, that's got to be. It's I'm committed to these principles until it impinges on my convenience, right? Or my
look. I mean, we would have discussions. I mean, if we got like at 5 a.m, we got some huge commercial loss and it's all hands on deck, we would be like, guys, we can't meet today. We're going to take the office staff and they're going to be pushing water with a broom out the back door. They understood that. But if it was just like, oh, we're like busy, but it looks like every other day and it's inconvenient for us, or we're trying to save a couple bucks, they revolted. Because once they get used to being invested in, that's a big part of what they like about the job that you have for them.
Yeah.
I mean, we have guys be like, dude, I could leave and make more money elsewhere, but I'm not leaving because you guys are investing in me as a person, and that's valuable to me.
Yeah.
And it was part of the routine every day. If their routine got taken off, they were not good. They're like, whoa, why aren't we doing what we're supposed to be doing? Why aren't we doing this?
Yeah.
And it would just hit them sideways. So we couldn't do that.
Yeah.
John, can I make a point about, because you started with technical training. We're talking about IICRC stuff, right? Which is great. I'm a proponent. I believe in it. I think it's good. But, and Larry and I come up against this of skeptical owners when we're talking about morning tech meeting. That's not where the majority of your problem is as a home service provider exists, right? And that's why Larry and I started doing the morning meeting every day anyway, because we started looking at like, where are we losing money? Where are we having headaches? Larry has this awesome video that he's got out where he has a fireman's outfit on because he used to be the fireman, putting out fires all day. And it's like, well, what's the opportunity cost of that?
Yeah.
Larry's supposed to be the marketing guy. So every time he's going to put out a fire, we're losing future revenue, and I'd be getting irate. So what we realized was that the answer to that is investing in their soft skills, because that's where the problems came. The problems came from they didn't communicate with the client. They didn't empathize with them well. They didn't put their property protection down correctly. All these other little things that are kind of more like in the air and life skills. Those were the things that got us all in trouble. It's not like you can't take two guys that are like 24 and 22 who really don't have any experience in life and maybe came from a background that nobody trained them how to behave with a higher end client. You can't send them to the $1 million house up the road that has a loss with a doctor and a lawyer as the husband and wife and a lot of high end goods, and not train them on communication skills and property protection and how to behave in a home and where to park the van and all those other things and expect it to go well.
Well,
people do it every day, and it's friggin' insanity.
Well, I think that's the one thing I picked up on a lot. So we used to, you have peaks, right, where you brought in temporary labor, or you might you're onboarding a new employee. And the one thing I would try to always get across people, because it kept recurring, is I never want to hear you say, I don't know, and not from the standpoint of that I don't expect you to know everything. But if a customer asks you a valid question, I never want to hear that coming out of your mouth. Say, that is a great question. Let me get my supervisor who can address that with you. But then for the technicians too, is if somebody asks you a question about what you do on a regular daily basis and you don't know the answer, that should be the last time they ask that question and you don't know the answer, right? Yep. And so, which is kind of what you do as a business owner, right? You figure it out as you go. I don't know. I'll have to figure that out. And so, but it's just like you're saying, there's, a core group of issues. You got to be clear in your process and consistent, which is like you're talking about the booties or laying down the paper, cleaning up at the end of the day, properly introducing yourself, or taking the photos from the four corners of the room. So when you say, I think we say that a lot, the soft skills. So just to be clear, what are soft skills and why are they important? Why are they important for the guy that's just trying to survive? Why is it important for him to invest in that with his team?
Larry, you want
The
to
soft
take
skills.
this?
The soft skills are just the non-technical skills.
Yeah.
How to greet the client, how to communicate, how to troubleshoot, how to deal with objections. Not just with selling, but just why are you doing this? Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Be able to explain yourself. Okay, you're doing this in my house. What's going on? Because you get many clients that ask questions. When are you going to be done? Why are you here so long? So you have to train them to be confident enough, to believe in themselves enough to express themselves with some type of integrity. Yeah. Because you can't go and talk to the client every single time the client answers a question. Your guys have to be capable and do a really good job at making a difference, looking them in the eye, saying the right things, and knowing what not to say. Also, if you have a property manager there, you can say, oh, your property manager should have been doing this. And you throw the property manager under the bus.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to teach your guys this, but you don't think when you hire them that you need to teach the guys these things.
Well, they're not you. They don't have your background. They don't have your experience. They're probably not the same age. The other thing, John, in addition, I agree with everything Larry said, but there's also, when it comes to a service business, and I still consider restoration a service business, right? What the customer's judging us on is not whether we dried the house out or not. They figure that every company they call can dry the house out.
Yeah.
They're judging us on our service experience.
Yeah.
And a service experience comes down to the theater of business.
Yeah.
You have to have a trained team in the theater of business where they pull up, they call or text the client on their way to let them know what time they're going to be there. They park the van in a certain place. They don't block the driveway in. They go to the front door looking a certain way, ring the doorbell. They stand back a certain amount. They look them in the eye, like Larry said. This is all theater. And, just like if it's a rock concert, when you show up, the band it's not like the first time they've done that.
Right.
They rent a gym somewhere and practice that for a long time. So that when you get there, the show is like spot on. Well, that's what we taught the guys to do. We would role play. We'd sit in these morning meetings and like, all right, go ring the doorbell. I'm the client. We'd walk through all these steps. And what you're doing is you're creating 5-star reviews on Google and Yelp. You're creating customers that will refer your business. It's like there is theater to this. Yeah. And the guys have to be taught how to be actors and actresses.
Yeah. So they know the expectation to perform, do the job properly, and communicate as if you're on stage. It's a big deal.
The problem is a lot of companies don't want to invest the time, energy, and resource into that. But what I think they missed the point on is that if you can get them there, your profit and your amount of jobs you do and the amount of referrals, it all skyrockets. You just have to get there first.
Well, somehow you said, Eric, you said they're not you. Somehow, I think maybe not always on purpose, but inadvertently we forget, like we all are where we are because we stubbed our toe, or stepped in something much worse, right? And so those lessons teach you. But I remember I was reading a book, millennials, whatever, but you do have to remember not everybody comes from the same background. I know, Eric, you've shared your story. You grew up blue collar. So there's a certain amount of expectation of work, right? That if somebody didn't grow up blue collar, it's not that they don't know or can't learn. It just, they haven't seen it. Right. And so there's just a different mindset that comes into play. So trying to break it down, I like to call it like the leadership download, right? If you're never sharing with people, hey, this is the story of how I got where I am. These are the things. I was at a talk last year, and he said, you learn from your successes, but other people learn and are encouraged by your failures, so opening yourself up to share, those experiences. So,
we kind of did that. We could have done it better, but, in our employee handbook, we had a history page. It was about a page and a half, 2 pages. And I had written out a history of Shamrock,
Huh.
how Larry and I went to college together, how, we were in business and the Great Recession hit and we were, cleaning salons all night and carpet and restoration all day. And that we basically worked 23 hours a day for 2 years straight to keep in business. Like we need. So our point is that you have this story that they get to then add to and be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we could have done better. Like we, at the later years, as we got bigger, we kind of got further and further from the story. Where guys would come into my office or Larry and I would be sitting in the office. They'd be like, you guys were in the field? Yeah. And, I'd be like, well, how the hell do you think we got to where we are, dude?
You used to work? Yeah.
They were blown away. Like I had no idea that you guys had ever done anything other than sit at this desk in this office.
I want to, you guys have a new, I actually did want to ask Larry, you just got DISC
certified. Yep.
DISC certified. So you guys are big proponents of that. I realize even Josh was talking about that wasn't something he's aware of. So, maybe briefly, what is DISC? How is that important for your two relationship as co-owners? And then also how did that filter through the team?
DISC was a great story. Eric, you want to tell them the story when we were at Howard's?
Sure. Yeah. So, we're Howard Partridge proteges. We were in Howard's coaching group for a long time. And, Larry and I could not be more different. Like we are literally polar opposites as people.
I'm fun. He's not.
Whatever. And so, we were at a point where as we were starting to grow, we were fighting a lot. And it was bleeding into the team seeing us fighting too, which is never good, And, it wasn't that we didn't care about each other. I mean, we've known each other most of our lives. We cared about each other, but we just couldn't bridge the gap. Like it was like, Larry's being a jerk to me. I'm being a jerk to Larry.
Yeah.
So we went to this Howard Partridge event and the keynote speaker was Dr. Robert Rome. And we're like, we don't even know who this guy is. Cause usually it'd be like John Maxwell, Darren Hardy, some big name. And we're like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
He got up and did this presentation on DISC where he's breaking down different personality types and what their traits are, their pros and their cons. And Larry and I, and he's an amazing speaker, by the way, and he's just got the room rocking. And Larry and I looked at each other at the table and we're like, we literally almost both listened to him like, hey man, I'm sorry. I was just being me. And it took all the personal out, John.
Yeah.
It wasn't Eric versus Larry anymore. It was Eric's wired this way and Larry's wired this way. Yeah. And so we started using it more ourselves at the very beginning just to coexist better. And we realized how much better we were getting along. And then all of a sudden we're like, geez, can you imagine if everybody on the team knew everybody's DISC profile, how much better the whole team would get along. So we started doing a day once a week, which is in morningtechmeeting.com too. We would do DISC training and within, I don't know, it took a little while, 4 months or so. All of a sudden you hear them in the shop talking about, well, hey man, I'm sorry I did that to you. I'm an I and I'm not detail oriented or whatever. Right. And, and next thing you know, your whole culture, everybody's dealing in DISC. And I think, John, I've told you the story before. I had a couple guys on a truck and they couldn't get along and they were going to duke it out in the warehouse. And my manager came in and it's like, these guys are about to throw down. I was have them come in the office. And I'm ready for World War III and, being the moderator of that. And
these were not
they sat down and I'm like,
they're ready to do some damage.
Oh yeah. They were like ready to kill each other. And I'm like, all right, guys, what's going on? And I'm waiting for, this freaking guy. And, and then they both kind of sighed and one goes, well, here's the deal, Eric. He's a D, I'm an I. He wants it done this way. I want it done that way. And he tells me the whole story, all in DISC, never saying the other guy's name. So it's not personal, right?
Yeah.
And the other guy goes, yeah, I'm kind of steamrolling him. I'm bullying him. But when he does this, it bugs me, yada, yada, yada. And then I was like, okay, so where do you, they're apologizing to each other basically as well. And I kind of looked at them like, we good? Yeah, we're good. And then, they just had to get off their chest and they did it all in DISC. They worked it out themselves. And those guys were on the truck together for a long time after that.
Yeah.
Without incident.
Yeah, I've seen.
I remember I called Larry and I'm like, all that work we've put in just paid off.
Paid off. There's the arc on return, right? So, Well, and that's so you mentioned Howard Partridge, right? So Howard Partridge is the Grant Cardone of the cleaning and restoration industry, right? He's gonna 10x.
Well, he way more than 10x'd us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so you guys have enriched your relationship with his organization, and it's not just a system that you bought the rights to, but you guys lived it and believe in it. Tell us a little bit about I guess the system, but also maybe on a broader level, how did you guys weed out what was BS and what you were like, okay, this is something we need to commit to and see it through?
Yeah, I mean,
you used to go to his conference, quarterly, and we'd learn so much stuff.
Yeah,
It's like drinking from a fire hose, and it was a challenge. And we'd come back to the office with all this great information. We're going to implement 1,000 things.
Yeah. Here we go.
And then the team would hate us.
Yep.
Everybody would be like, "Oh my God, here they're coming at us again."
Would you come back with the spray tan and the rings and everything? And
oh yeah. So anyway, no. So it went really well. I mean, but we didn't implement things like we should have. We at the end after a couple of shows, we had a couple things that we just would focus on, and that would change. The big rocks would make a big difference. Yeah. I'm sure Eric had a different take on it. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, well, I was going to say is, we were at a point where we, had a lot of chaos and we didn't really know how to, because Larry and I didn't start the business to be on the truck all the time.
Sure.
Like we never started it for that purpose. It was always to be an entrepreneur, not an owner operator. That was never our goal.
Yeah.
So, Howard's whole tagline has been for like 30 years, don't be a slave to your business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what, I was looking at that going, I want to get off the truck. I want to build a team. I want to do all these things to have the life that was the dream in my head when I started the business. It wasn't just to spend 30 years in the truck. If you want to be on the truck for 30 years, more power to you. Like there's nothing wrong with that. That was just never for us. So I looked and I said, well, Howard Partridge did what I want to do. I mean, that was the bottom line. He was a carpet cleaner and he was like, on the truck for a really long time. And then he created a system for first himself and then everybody else to get off the truck. So, we joined because, the whole thing is that if you want an outcome, go find somebody that's already done the same thing that you want to do and just copy them. Right. Yeah. But, what that entails is that you can't just they can't hand you 10 binders, like Larry said, and just said, well, go.
Yeah.
You'll never do it. You'll get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So, you have to have somebody walking you through that process of implementation along the way and chip away at that goal. So one of the things, Howard basically took us from nothing to the point where we could sell, and we had become turnkey along the way where, we were both in the business, but we weren't in the business every minute of every day.
Right.
We'd go ride our bikes in the middle of the day for 3 hours, and people were, our team was taking care of business. Like it was all good. So after we sold, we just, remained friends with Howard for, we're just friendly at this point. We've worked with him so closely for so many years. And, I went on vacation with Howard and his wife and my wife and some other friends in last spring. And we kind of started talking about what we can do together. And, kind of COVID hit right after. So it kind of slowed us down. But, Howard and I had a conversation a few weeks ago and he's like, hey, I think your people could really benefit from some sort of system of get off the truck. Right. So Howard runs these things called pods. Like once you're an inner circle member, that's what the membership's called. You can go with the Ellen Rohr and it's all about, finance for a service business, or you could go with, Ziegler and go do all that, personal sales development or whatever. Right. So we're going to be running a pod itself called Get Off the Truck. So basically as a couple meatheads who are on the truck, we're just like every guy that would sign up.
Been there, done that.
We're going to help our blue collar brethren get from being an owner operator and they don't want to do it anymore to using Howard's system, but taking what we learned how to implement it and we're going to walk them through, getting employees, hiring, doing a morning meeting, getting some leadership skills, all those things. So we're super, super excited about it. And we're going to be at the Experience in Charleston with a booth. Howard's going to be there. It's going to be pretty good.
Very cool.
We don't have an exact start date yet. We're still, in the process of getting people signed up. And once we get that rolling, then we'll start.
Very cool. And best way to stay up to date, you got the Blue Collar Nation podcast and the morningtechmeeting.com.
Yep.
Is kind of the center platform. Any closing thoughts, anything that's kind of fresh on your minds for 2021?
Get off the truck. Yeah. I mean, that's what we're dedicating this year to, is help guys get off the truck.
Get off the truck and into a pod.
Yeah. Off the truck and into a pod. Yeah.
Fall off the truck and fall into a pod.
Just so everybody knows, the pod's virtual. Yeah. We're not actually climbing in some round thing.
There you go. Escape pod, right? Is this
great? Get one of those.
That Mars.
I'll put on my fireman hat and crawl out of a pod.
There you go. I'm sure you'll come up with something. Well, gentlemen, it's always fun catching up with you. Thank you so much
Thanks for having us on.
All right, John, you're the man, buddy. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, John.
Word up.
Awesome. Yep. So you got Morning Tech Meeting is where you can keep up with Larry and Eric. Eric, the Tech Whisperer, Sprague, and Larry, Pineapple Man, Wilberton, Blue Collar Nation podcast. So we have an extra treat, extra action-packed, nonstop. Katie Smith is going to join us, and we're going to talk about RIA Convention. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
So far, so good. It's Thursday, which means it's almost Friday. So this year, barring anything even crazier than what we've already experienced, RIA this year will be in person in Florida, correct?
Yes, in Florida at the end of June 28th through the 30th. But we don't even care what the weather is going to be like, because we're just so excited to be in person again. In person. Yep.
So this, what is the theme carrying over from last year? Or is there a new theme for this year?
Well, we're evolving. We've been talking about how our industry has been fragmented for so long, and this is our 75th Diamond Anniversary Convention. But the official theme is the industry stands united. We really want to touch on all the ways that the RIA has been working to unite the industry and to speak together as one voice for the restoration contractor.
Yeah. Well, and I know I forgot to mention that in the notes. So next week on the 3rd, it's a joint state of the industry with RIA IICRC, which is a big, great sign of what you guys are trying to promote as far as unity goes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's on Facebook Live.
It'll be on Facebook Live at noon on March 3rd. And then we'll have it available on our YouTube channel and our website as well.
You don't have to be a member, and that's noon Eastern time, right?
No, you do not have to be a member. There's no registration or anything. If you follow us on Facebook, you'll get the notification when we go live. Just tune in on Facebook. That's all you have to do.
Very good. And so you're not just a paid advocate for the RIA. I know you're getting millions of dollars for being on the show. We've paid you. They've paid you. They've probably paid you equal to what we've paid you. But you're a business owner, right? And you've invested for many, many years. You're now the president-elect of RIA, the Restoration Industry Association. For you, why has it been important to be involved? You got all the other stuff going on of being a restoration owner and running the operations. Why has RIA been important to you? And then why is convention? What do you think the benefits are convention for others that maybe are considering it?
Right. So the reason I volunteer, volunteer for free. I in this industry. My dad was a restorer when I was growing up, and so we're a second generation family business, and this industry has always provided for my family. And just my style of living. I don't want to take and take and take. I want to give.
Yeah.
And so it's important for me to give back and to leave it better for the next generation that comes along. So I also like to just be involved. I like to feel like I have a place where I belong in a community that I'm a part of. I'm just a big believer in community. So this restoration community, it's just amazing. You can have just wonderful relationships with people across the country and in other countries. So for me, I volunteer because the relationships that I'm able to build with RIA, they're just invaluable to me, and they help me in my business all the time. So being involved is just a big deal to me. But then the convention, it's just a time where you can learn. There's a lot of top-notch education. It's just some of the best sessions and keynote speakers and the networking opportunities where you finally have a chance to get in person and just bounce ideas off of someone. We're all dealing with the same problems in our business, and I've had the joy of listening to your podcast this whole time, and I'm just like, we all have the same issues, every business, we're all the same. And so you can get together with other people and see what they're doing to address the same problems that you're trying to solve.
Yeah. Very cool. So looking forward to it. Like you said, the diamond. So hopefully some of the historical figures that have been a part of RIA over the years will all be assembling as well. And
we're going to have a past president's panel. And then just a couple of panels where we're going to have some people talking about some major catastrophe response that they've been involved in over the years. We are working to finalize a contract with our keynote speaker. It will be someone that most of you have all heard of and probably read some of his books. And so as soon as we get that finalized, we'll be able to announce that soon. But I'm really excited about that. But we also have our big awards night. Just a lot to celebrate. 75 years is a long time.
Yeah.
A strong history, and so we're going to have a lot of our members over the years come back to join us. But you can go to convention.restorationindustry.org and see the whole agenda. There's some pre-convention workshops. We're going to have building science, project management. We're going to have an Xactimate boot camp. Some really good courses on the front end of the convention that would be great to attend as well.
You said convention.restorationindustry.org.
That's it.
So I'll put that up just so people have that. So
that's good.
Very good. Well, any other, thank you for joining us, Katie. Do you have any other closing thoughts for 2021? This is, I think, our 50th episode of the DYOJO podcast. So, yeah.
Well, I know a lot of people are dealing with a lot of stress right now and probably overwhelmed with storm response. And so I'm just hoping that everybody can just take the time to step away from their business for a little bit, get off the truck, as your guest said, and just take the time to learn, and then get the takeaways and then take them back to your business and spread them throughout your company, which we talk about with our certifications all the time. The knowledge we have is only good if we share it with someone else. And so we're going to get a lot of takeaways to bring back.
Very cool. All right, Katie. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll see you in Florida in June.
Thanks, John.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
So there you have it. Okay, so the DYOJO podcast, episode 50. Some people are asking, how can we support the podcast? We actually have, the DYOJO has 2 books. Book number 2 just came out. We got paperback and Kindle. It's on Be Intentional Culture, how the small things enhance or undermine your culture, your efforts to build a strong workplace culture. Ties in nicely with what Eric and Larry were talking about, investing in soft skills training for your people. And of course, the classic, the one and only Be Intentional Estimating. Those are also available on the website, thedyojo.com, DYOJO.com. But like I said, you got Eric and Larry on the Blue Collar Nation. They do a great job. Their most recent guest, Ryan Lucia, learned a lot from that. We were talking about that around the office, just learning from other people's successes and failures. It encourages you. You're not alone. And the trial and error you can survive, and then being intentional to add those pieces and those kinds of things. So lots of fun stuff. What do we got coming up? Mark Springer is going to be on the show. David Olson's coming up. We got Ed Cross, the restoration lawyer, coming on. So, and some big surprises coming, something I've been working on for a long time. So as far as some guests and some topics. So if you're not aware, the Intentional Restorer column, Restoration and Remediation magazine, I think that's the second Friday of every month. So that'll be coming out too. We've been trying to dive into some deeper topics, deeper context. So thank you so much for joining us. Let's hit the music to take us on out of here. Have a good one.
This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.